Right, good afternoon once again, and happy Sabbath to everyone. It's another episode of AYA Travelogue, and for today, I'm gonna tell you a story about one of my trips. The set of this story happened in the Philippines, particularly in the city of Baguio, one of the major cities in the Philippines. These happened in 2003. During this time, I was still studying at the Adventist University of the Philippines, or AUP. This was in May. I was in AUP because I was there to start the enrollment process. June is the start of classes. May I was there and started to enroll. I was with my friends and we finished the enrollment pretty quick. Usually the enrollment in AUP during our time it takes a week for you to process your papers, your enrollment papers. But this time, for some reason, I and my friends were able to finish the enrollment process quickly. It took us maybe just in 3 days. And classes won't start until first week of June or even second week. So we had lots of time to spare. We're in the campus. Enrollment is done, and classes still will start probably a week or two from the time that we enroll. So we were roaming around the campus every day. We were together with my friends. These are my friends from my choir or singing group in AUP. Regent Square Chorale is the name of the choir. And one time, one of my friends suggested that since classes is not starting yet until June, why don't we rent a car and go to Baguio? AUP is located in Cavite, in a province called Cavite, Silang Cavite, and Baguio is in Benguet province. It's an 8-hour drive from AUP in the mountains. And one of my friends had this idea to rent a car and we drive all the way to Baguio while waiting for classes to start. That was a crazy idea, especially we are still students. Usually for students, you just stay in the campus and you don't have you don't have jobs yet, obviously, because you're a student. And our money is just it's just coming from our allowance. So we don't have much money, but one of my friends suggested let's rent a car and go to Baguio. So we had this idea and we recruited people. Before it was just the two of us to plan this, but then we said it will be merrier. The more the merrier if there are more people joining the trip. So we recruited some of our friends. So in total, there were five of us on the trip. Uh, Me and Valen, her name is Valen. Dexter is the other one, and the other one is Rosel and Ian. So these are the names of my friends: Valen, Dexter, Rosel, Ian, and me. Five of us planned to go to Baguio while waiting for classes to start. And we didn't inform our parents about this, by the way. So our parents thought that we were in AUP processing our enrollment, but we finished quickly. So we did this, but we didn't inform them because we know that if we inform them, they won't allow us. Right? It's a crazy idea. You're in AUP, you rent a car, go to Baguio to spend a weekend there. So we pushed through with this plan. One of our friends went to Manila, Ian, because Cavite is quite far from Manila, and he was the one who took the car, rental car, based in Pasay in Manila. And Valen and I remember during that night we went to a mall and kind of spent some time in the mall while waiting for the car that's going to take us to Baguio. No, I think it was Dexter and Ian who got the car. Yeah, it was the two of them. Dexter and Ian went to Pasay to get the car, rental car, and me and Valen went to a mall. It's called Festival Mall in Alabang. And then Roselle was also, I'm not sure where Roselle was during the time when they took the car. Anyway, they took the car and they went to Festival Mall. We were there. And then from Festival Mall in Alabang, we just took off going to Baguio. That was a night trip. We departed around, I think that was around 10 p.m. or even 11. It was a night trip going to Baguio. And we expected to arrive in Baguio in the morning because the drive, it will take around 8 hours, if I'm not mistaken. 8 to 10. Yeah. So while we were on our way to Baguio, it was a night trip. It was nice. It was a good feeling. Imagine you have this feeling of adventure. You're on your own. You have your own car and driver, and it's just your friends, you and your friends. You know that feeling. And we were young at the time, college students. So Ian was driving, Dexter was on the passenger seat, and we were sitting at the back seat. Me, Valen, and Rosel. We were telling stories along the way in the car. We were so happy. We were playing music, and then we were stopping over if there's a good restaurant, for example, or for gas. We will kind of just hang out, talk. The trip was pretty relaxed. It was a nice trip. It was so memorable. And I remember we even passed by a road because that was already early morning because we departed 10 p.m. So when we were in Pangasinan, because the route going to Baguio is from AUP. You have to go to the North Luzon Expressway, and then I think that's in the province of in the city of Cabanatuan. You have Isiha province. You have to take another road and going to Pangasinan province. And there was even a time where when we were on the road in Pangasinan where on the sides there were no houses, it was just tall grass, and it was just us on the road, our car on the road, no houses in sight. And it was kind of like in one of those horror movies, and we were telling horror stories. And we were quite scared, thinking, oh, it is just us on the road right now, no houses on site. It's just these tall grasses, tall grass called, we call it kogon grass. So that's one of the experiences going there, and we were sharing stories about horror stories or incidents about murder, something like that. So it added to kind of the thrill. At the same time, it's quite fearful, but it's nice because we were together in the car. So that was the experience. It was nice. And I remember in one of the gas stations, we just pulled over, and our driver was already sleepy, so he slept for a while, pulled over, and while he slept, we were chatting. It was fun. And then we arrived in Baguio the next day. Baguio was nice. It was cool. People go to Baguio because of the climate. And I remember during the time we arrived, cool breeze, foggy. It was a bit cloudy, but that's what you want because normally in Cavite and Manila it's so hot. So it was a good respite for us to be in Baguio. And we stayed at Mountain Provinces Mission, one of the missions of Seventh Day Adventist Church. And we went to the guest house there. I remember this guest house because when we were kids, we used to stay in these guest houses before. They even have a fireplace. If you're from Mountain Provinces Mission, or if you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. You know those guest houses where they have this fireplace. That's where we stayed, and we explored Baguio. We have our own car. We went to Mines View, Burnham Park, Philippine Military Academy. What else? Yeah, we just pretty much relaxed, ate at restaurants, and because at a guest house they have a kitchen, so we bought our own food as well and cook our own food. It was fun. You can imagine the excitement and the fun with friends. You have your own car. You're young, so we enjoyed it. There was even one evening where I texted one of my friends who's studying in Baguio. His name is John Agarao, and we met him. We we had dinner. I remember that was in Chowking. Before Chowking was a thing, even though it's just fast food. But you're a student. Chowking was like, oh wow, it is a thing, and it was nice. We enjoyed Baguio, especially when we were in the Philippine Military Academy. It was always a good time visiting that academy before because it was so clean. Manicured lawn, flowers. I don't know nowadays. They say nowadays it's not that beautiful anymore, but during the time, PMA was so beautiful. So we went there and we had a good time. Our driver was just Ian all throughout because me and Dexter, we still, during the time, we still don't know how to drive. Well, we know, but we don't have a license and we're not that expert yet. So it was just Ian, or we call him Timon. He was the one who was driving all the time. So if he's watching right now, thank you for doing this for us. We were just relaxing and you were driving. I think we spent, if I'm not mistaken, 2 nights and 3 days in Baguio. Was it 2 nights and 3 days? Or yeah, for sure it was 2 nights at that guest house. And after spending some time in Baguio, roaming around, being together, eating at restaurants, just having a good time, it's time for us to go back, to go home. And by the way, I remember going to Baguio. There were even times where, because we were young, right? And Ian was also young during the time. There was even a time where we would race with cars on the road, kind of like have a, those kinds of races. Uh, a car will overtake you, and you'll try to overtake the car again. We were doing that. He was doing that, and it was kind of thrilling on the way to Baguio. Now we were already on our way home, going home, and upon going home to AUP, we departed Baguio in in the morning, if not morning, noontime, at around 12 or 11, something like that. It was a day trip going home to AUP from Baguio. So if you've been to Baguio, you know that the road there is so curvy, zigzag road. So we enjoyed it. That's the kind of the road going to Baguio, and of course going back to AUP. Sometimes stopping by, taking pictures if there's a nice view. Upon going to Baguio, we passed by Cannon Road. Going home, we passed by a different route, Marcos Highway, just so to experience both roads. And while we were on our way to AUP, we were still having fun. It was nice. We were talking to each other, sometimes sleeping in the car. And I remember because the car was a Toyota Corolla, Toyota Corolla car, 1600 engine, and the model is 90s. So there was a player, but a cassette player in the car. And I remember I brought my cassette tape before. I had a cassette tape of the Philippine Madrigal singers, the yellow one called Mads Around the World. I was playing that. I remember that, and we all love choral music in that group. So that was our music in the car. Philippine Madrigal singers, Mads Around the World, the color yellow record. And on the road, we were exchanging jokes, talking to each other. And as usual, every time we ride a car, it has been kind of like a custom to always pray, whether that be taking public transport or having your own car. Whenever we travel, it has been instilled to us to pray before we depart. And when we went to Baguio, of course, we prayed before traveling, and upon going home, we pray as well. But for us, it's kind of like a routine. It's like kind of like a custom, but you don't really. There was no depth in that because you don't really expect that you're gonna meet an accident, right? It's just kind of like a routine. Okay, I'm gonna travel. Let's just pray. Done. something like that. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, you're so sincere because something might happen. We don't even think about it. Especially psychology. If you're young, you don't think of accidents. You're not afraid of dying. But anyway, it was a custom to pray. So we prayed. You know, before going to Baguio, before going back home to AUP, we offered a prayer to protect us on the journey. And in the car, one of us, I'm not sure who, probably was Balin, suggested that our estimated time of arrival, by the way, in AUP is going to be late afternoon, so it's still not going to be dark. So she suggested that before returning the car, or even before going to AUP, because we still have, I think, 1 day left that we can use. So she said before going to AUP, instead of going straight to AUP, let's go to Tagaytay. So from Baguio to Tagaytay, and let's experience that mushroom burger there. There used to be a famous mushroom burger place in Tagaytay, and she said, "All right, before going to AUP, let's go to Tagaytay to experience the mushroom burger." We That added to the excitement because usually on a trip, you're so excited before a trip, but after the trip, the energy is done, right? But that kind of brought back the excitement because after that, the Baguio trip, we're still going to Tagaytay. So Tagaytay is also nice, cool climate, nice view, good food, relaxing vibe. So we were excited. We were on our way, and that was the plan. So Balin is listening right now. Balin, one of my friends who was with me in that Baguio trip, she's so adventurous. Imagine we just came from Baguio and she suggested to go to Tagaytay. That's how adventurous she was. Probably she is. Are you still traveling? Are you still fond of traveling right now, Balin? Because before you were so adventurous. Anyway, so in the afternoon we were already in Nueva Ecija before going to North Luzon Expressway, and some people were sleeping. I think Dexter was sleeping, Rosella was sleeping, and then upon entering North Luzon Expressway or NLEX, they started to wake up and we started exchanging jokes again. Just to have fun, to kill time. We were exchanging jokes, so I was like, okay, let's share some jokes. I'll start first, and then you share your jokes, something like that. And of course, Ian wasn't part of the conversation because he was the driver, right? So he was just focused on the wheel. And when we were at North Luzon Expressway, you know, you know how it works. Expressway in the Philippines, although it's called expressway, but there are lots of cars. Sometimes it's even hard to get your top speed because there are lots of cars. Anyway, there were lots of cars during the time on the expressway, and I remember it was my time to share a joke, and we were just having time. I think it was the three of us who were talking because Dexter was so busy cutting his nails, fingernails. He was having this nail cutter cutting his fingernails. He wasn't participating in the conversation, so it was just me, Valen, and Rosel who were exchanging jokes. And I clearly remember my joke that time, but I won't tell it here because so I was telling this joke, right? And and when I finished the joke and they started laughing, we just heard a smashing sound of metal, boom, something like that, and we just smashed into the car in front of us. And I remember Timon, Ian, even said a swear word, and he tried to swerve the wheel, but it was too late. He slammed the brake, but it was too late, and he uttered a swear word. And after uttering the swear word, we just heard the sound and felt the impact. So we just smashed at a car in front of us, and the one at our behind us bump us as well. I clearly remember the moment, and it was the impact was so hard. It was so hard that I remember we were just thrown, and then after that, it was so sudden that at first it was quite hard to register what really happened. I just heard the sound of metal crashing and felt the bump. But then finally it hit me that, oh, we just had an accident. And I remember Valen was sitting next to me, and she was kind of leaning over, and there was a liquid dripping on my leg. And I thought it was blood from her. And I was like, what's this? Anyway, it was just the water bottle, thankfully. But at first I was like, oh, is it blood from Valen? Something like that. So we got out of the car and checked ourselves. I thought we had injuries because the impact was so hard, really. And Dexter wasn't even wearing a seatbelt. He was so busy cutting his fingernails that he wasn't wearing a seatbelt. What were you thinking, Dexter, in the time you weren't wearing a seatbelt, man? So we went out of the car, checked ourselves, and miraculously, nothing happened to us. And when we checked the car, I don't have a picture right now. Valen has a picture, but it's in her scrapbook, a hard copy. So we don't have a soft copy. So if you look at a car, it kind of became like a hatchback. It was a Toyota Corolla, right, a sedan, but it kind of became a hatchback because of the impact behind, and the front was just it was like crumpled paper. And when looking at the car, we just felt thankful that nothing happened to us. Nothing happened. No injury, no scratch. Rosella was kind of complaining about, kind of like, she said, like a whiplash, maybe a bit of an injury, but she had an X-ray eventually, and it was not serious. So, and thinking about that incident, we are reminded of how God protected us, because despite of the impact, despite of the severity of the impact, nothing happened to us. And then finally the police came and the car was towed, and we didn't know what to do with the car. It was rental, remember, it was rental. And the insurance is not comprehensive. Oh man, because it was not brand new. So it was towed. It was initially brought to Ian's house because they live in Quezon City, and it was initially brought there in their subdivision. And when the people saw the car in their subdivision, they were so amazed that we are still alive. They said when they saw the car, the situation of the car, the appearance of the car, they said, in Tagalog, they said, ang lakas nyo sa itaas. It means God really favored you during that incident, because looking at the situation of the car, they were thinking that something might have happened to us, but nothing happened. And we were just happy. We were so happy that we are alive and we were injury free. But at the same time, I think we were kind of disappointed that we weren't able to go to that mushroom burger place in Tagaytay because of that incident. But if you think about it, okay, we had an accident, but it happened when we were already going home, right? The trip was over. We had a good time already in Baguio. What if it happened before going to Baguio? Think about it, right? So God was still with us despite of us being so impulsive and young and adventurous, but God still protected us. So that's one of my testimonies of how God protected me in my travels. So I would like to thank the Lord, and and for you to be reminded that if you just ask the Lord in prayer, He will always be there to protect you, and to to not take for granted praying every time you travel, every time you go on the road. Thank you for listening.